The fluorescent lights of Memorial Grace Hospital buzzed overhead as Nora Bennett pushed through another grueling hour of her double shift. At 26 years old, exhaustion had become her constant companion, settling deep into her bones like an unwelcome guest who refused to leave. She moved through the maternity ward with practiced efficiency, her warm brown eyes scanning charts and checking monitors while her mind wandered to the tiny face waiting for her in the staff nursery downstairs. Lily. Her 4-month-old daughter. Her entire world compressed into 8 pounds of giggles and midnight feedings. Nora paused by the nurse's station, rolling her aching shoulders as she glanced at the clock. 3:17 in the morning. Another 5 hours until her shift ended, and then she would hold her baby girl again. The thought kept her moving, kept her breathing through the bone-deep weariness that came from working 70 hours a week just to keep their cramped apartment and put food on the table. Her ex-boyfriend, Lily's father, had disappeared the moment she mentioned pregnancy. Just vanished like smoke, leaving behind nothing but empty promises and mounting bills. Nora had learned quickly that she could either collapse under the weight or become strong enough to carry it. She chose strength, even when it felt impossible. She was restocking medication in the supply room when the emergency alarm shattered the quiet night. The automatic doors burst open and chaos flooded the sterile hallway. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher, their faces grim, their movements urgent. On the gurney lay a woman, maybe early 30s, unconscious and heavily pregnant. Blood soaked through the white sheets. "We need an operating room now," Dr. Martinez shouted, his calm demeanor replaced by sharp commands. "How far along is she?" 37 weeks, a paramedic called back, running alongside the stretcher. "Severe car accident. She's been unconscious for 18 minutes. Head trauma and internal bleeding." Nora felt her heart clench. She had seen emergencies before, but something about this one felt different. More desperate. The air itself seemed to crackle with urgency. Behind the stretcher, a man stumbled through the doors. Tall and broad-shouldered, he wore an expensive charcoal suit now rumpled and stained with blood. His dark hair fell across his forehead in disarray, and his face had gone pale as death itself. He moved like a man in a nightmare, trying to run but feeling his legs turn to lead. "Rebecca," he kept saying, his voice cracking. "Rebecca, please." A nurse tried to stop him at the operating room doors. "Sir, you cannot come in here. You need to wait outside. That's my wife." His voice broke completely. "That's my wife and our baby. I have to be with them." The doors swung shut in his face, leaving him standing alone in the harsh hallway light. He stood frozen for a moment, then his knees seemed to give out. He sank into a plastic chair, buried his face in his hands, and Nora watched his shoulders shake with silent sobs. She found herself moving toward him, drawn by an instinct she could not name. "Sir," she said gently, "can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" He looked up, and Nora was struck by the raw devastation in his blue eyes. "I just need her to be okay," he whispered. "I need both of them to be okay." "The doctors here are excellent," Nora assured him, though the words felt hollow against such fear. "They'll do everything they can." He nodded, but his hands trembled violently. Nora sat down beside him, maintaining a respectful distance but offering silent company. Sometimes presence mattered more than words. 3 hours crawled by like centuries. Nora should have returned to her duties, but something kept her nearby, checking on this stranger whose world was shattering. Other nurses brought updates when they could. The surgery was complicated. They were doing their best. "Please keep waiting." Finally, Dr. Martinez emerged from the operating room, his surgical mask pulled down, revealing a face heavy with the burden of bad news. The man Nora had learned was named Gabriel Hayes stood up so fast his chair clattered backward. "Doctor?" Gabriel's voice was barely audible. "How are they?" Dr. Martinez took a breath. "Your son is alive, Mr. Hayes. He's small and will need monitoring, but his vital signs are stable. He's a fighter. And Rebecca? Gabriel swayed on his feet. And my wife? The silence stretched too long. Nora felt tears prick her eyes before the doctor even spoke. I'm so sorry, Dr. Martinez said quietly. The internal injuries were too severe. We did everything possible, but she didn't survive the surgery. The sound that came from Gabriel Hayes was something Nora would never forget. Not quite a cry, not quite a scream, but the sound of a human soul breaking. He collapsed back into the chair, his body folding in on itself as grief consumed him whole. His hands covered his face and his shoulders shook with sobs so deep they seemed to come from somewhere beyond pain. I want to see her, he finally managed. Of course, Dr. Martinez said gently. And would you like to meet your son? Gabriel froze. For a long moment he sat perfectly still, not breathing, not moving. When he finally looked up, his eyes were empty. I cannot, he whispered. Not right now. I cannot look at him. He stood unsteadily and walked toward the family room where his wife's body waited, leaving behind a newborn who would never know his mother's voice. Nora stood in that hallway long after Gabriel had gone, tears streaming down her face for a man she did not know and a baby who had entered the world already wrapped in loss. She wiped her eyes and made her way to the neonatal intensive care unit. Baby Hayes was impossibly tiny, hooked up to monitors that beeped steadily in the dim room. Even through the clear walls of his incubator, Nora could see he had his father's strong features and what must have been his mother's delicate nose. A nurse was trying to feed him formula, but the baby kept turning his head away, his cries weak but persistent. He won't take the bottle, Nurse Chen said softly. We've tried 4 different formulas. Poor little angel. Nora watched the baby's distressed movements, and her own body responded instinctively. Her milk had come in abundantly after Lily's birth, often more than her daughter needed. She had heard about babies who could not tolerate formula, especially after trauma. Has anyone contacted the milk bank? Nora asked. Dr. Martinez is working on it, but it will be hours before donor milk arrives. Nurse Chen shook her head. With his fragile state, he needs nutrition now. The baby's cries grew weaker, his tiny energy fading. Nora pressed her hands against the incubator, her heart making a decision before her mind caught up. I'm still breastfeeding my daughter, she said quietly. If Dr. Martinez approves and we get proper consent, I could feed him. Just until the donor milk arrives. Nurse Chen's eyes widened. Nora, that's highly unusual. I know. But look at him. The baby had gone quiet, too exhausted to cry anymore. He won't survive the night without food. 20 minutes later, after hurried consultations with Dr. Martinez and the hospital's legal team, Nora found herself in a private room with the tiny baby cradled in her arms. She had never nursed a child who was not her own, but as the baby latched immediately and his small body relaxed for the first time since his traumatic birth, something felt absolutely right. She hummed softly, a lullaby her grandmother had taught her, and felt tears slip down her cheeks. She did not notice Gabriel Hayes standing in the doorway until he spoke. What are you doing? His voice was shattered, barely recognizable. Nora looked up, meeting his devastated gaze. Feeding your son, she said simply. He wouldn't take the formula. Gabriel stared at them. This stranger holding his child, giving life from her own body. Something in his expression cracked open, raw and vulnerable. Why? He whispered. Nora looked down at the baby, then back at his broken father. Because he needs someone to care right now, and at this moment, he has no one else. The words hung between them, heavy with truth. Gabriel took a shaky step into the room, then another, until he was close enough to see his son's peaceful face. I don't even know what to name him, he admitted, his voice breaking again. Did you and your wife have names chosen? Nora asked gently. She wanted Lucas. Said it meant light. His smile was brief, twisted with grief. She thought it was perfect because she said he would be the light of our lives. Lucas, Nora repeated softly. It's beautiful. He looks like a Lucas. They sat in silence, watching the baby nurse peacefully. Finally, Lucas finished eating and fell into the deep sleep that only comes after a full belly and feeling safe. I should go, Gabriel said, but he made no move to leave. You don't have to, Nora replied. He's your son. What kind of father can't even hold his own child? The words came out bitter and broken. What kind of man lets a complete stranger care for his baby because he's too destroyed to do it himself? Nora adjusted Lucas gently in her arms. The kind who just lost everything. The kind who's human and hurting. Their eyes met across the small room, and something shifted. Something fragile and new, born from tragedy and compassion. Will you come back tomorrow? Gabriel asked quietly. To feed him again? Nora nodded without hesitation. As long as he needs me. Neither of them knew it yet, but those 5 words would change everything. As Gabriel walked away with shoulders bent under impossible grief, and Nora returned to her rounds with a heart fuller than it had been in months, baby Lucas slept peacefully, dreaming of warmth and safety and the gentle voice of the woman who had given him his first taste of love. Somewhere in the quiet halls of Memorial Grace Hospital, destiny smiled at the seeds it had planted in the darkest hour of night. 5 days had passed since the night that changed everything, and Gabriel Hayes still had not held his son. Nora arrived at Memorial Grace Hospital for her evening shift with Lily strapped securely against her chest in a soft carrier. The daycare had closed unexpectedly due to a staffing emergency, leaving her with no choice but to bring her daughter along. Her supervisor had reluctantly agreed, provided she kept Lily quiet and out of the way. As she walked through the neonatal unit, Nora spotted Gabriel through the glass window of Lucas's room. He sat in the same uncomfortable plastic chair he occupied every day, wearing dark jeans and a wrinkled blue shirt that looked like he had slept in it. His hair stood up in places where he had run his hands through it too many times, and 3 empty coffee cups lined the window ledge. He stared at his son through the clear walls of the incubator, but his hands remained firmly clasped in his lap, as if touching the baby might shatter what little control he had left. He's been here since sunrise, Nurse Chen whispered, joining Nora at the observation window. Barely eats, hardly speaks to anyone, but he won't leave. And he still won't touch Lucas. Nora's heart squeezed painfully. She adjusted Lily, who was beginning to squirm and make soft cooing sounds against her chest. Taking a deep breath, she knocked gently on the door before entering. Good evening, she said softly. Gabriel looked up, and Nora was startled by how much more hollow his eyes had become. Dark circles shadowed his face, and he had clearly lost weight. You came back, he said, as if he had genuinely doubted she would. I told you I would. Nora moved to the sink to wash her hands, the familiar routine calming her nerves. How has Lucas been today? The nurses say he's gaining weight steadily. Eating well when? He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. When you feed him. When a stranger does what I cannot. Lucas stirred in his incubator, making the small mewing sounds Nora had learned meant he was hungry. His tiny fists clenched and unclenched. Would you like to help me? Nora asked Gabriel gently. You could hold him while I get settled. Gabriel's face went pale. I don't think I can. You can, Nora assured him. Your hands remember how, even if your heart feels too broken right now. She carefully lifted Lucas from the incubator, supporting his delicate head with practiced ease. The baby was warm and solid in her arms, already so much stronger than that first terrifying night. She took a step toward Gabriel, offering him his son. Gabriel's hands trembled violently as he reached out. For a moment, Nora thought he would pull back, but then his arms were around Lucas, cradling him against his chest for the first time. The baby settled immediately, as if recognizing something essential in his father's heartbeat. Gabriel made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. He's so small, he whispered. So perfect. He has your chin, Nora said softly, settling into the chair beside them. And I think his eyes are going to be blue like yours. Rebecca had green eyes, Gabriel said, his voice thick. Like emeralds. I hoped he would have her eyes. Maybe he'll have her smile instead, Nora suggested. Or her laugh. There are so many ways he'll carry her with him. They sat together in comfortable silence while Nora nursed Lucas, with Gabriel holding his son for the first time. Lily dozed peacefully against Nora's chest, her tiny hand curled around her mother's shirt. When Lucas finished eating, Gabriel did not immediately hand him back. Instead, he held his son close, studying every detail of his face as if memorizing it. You're a good mother, Gabriel said suddenly, watching how naturally Nora managed both babies. Lily is lucky to have you, Dee, and his head turned from side to side, instinctively searching for comfort and nourishment. Nora smiled sadly. I'm the lucky one. She saved me when I didn't even know I needed saving. Her father? Gabriel asked, then immediately looked apologetic. I'm sorry. That's too personal. It's okay. Nora adjusted Lily's position. He left the moment I told him I was pregnant. Said he wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility. She laughed without humor. As if anyone is ever truly ready. His loss, Gabriel said firmly. Anyone who could walk away from you and this beautiful child is a fool. The conviction in his voice surprised Nora. They barely knew each other, yet something about sharing these quiet moments with their children had created an unexpected intimacy between them. Over the following days, a rhythm developed. Nora would arrive for her shifts and find Gabriel already there. They would talk while she fed Lucas, conversations that started surface level but gradually deepened. Gabriel told her about Rebecca, how they had met at a charity gala, how she had made him laugh when he had forgotten how. He spoke of his technology company, the long hours and high pressure, and how Rebecca had kept him grounded. Nora shared her own story. Growing up with a single mother who worked 3 jobs, putting herself through nursing school, the dreams she had put on hold when Lily arrived. She spoke honestly about the fear that woke her at 3 in the morning, the constant worry about money and whether she was doing enough for her daughter. One evening, after Nora mentioned her rent was increasing and she did not know how she would manage, Gabriel made an offer. Let me help you, he said. Please. I want to pay you for taking care of Lucas. More than fairly. No, Nora said immediately. I'm not doing this for money. I know that. But you're giving my son something irreplaceable, and you're struggling. Let me ease that burden. Gabriel, I can't accept your money. It wouldn't feel right. His jaw tightened, but he nodded, respecting her decision even though she could see the frustration in his eyes. The conversation changed 2 days later when Dr. Martinez informed them that Lucas was ready to be discharged. The baby had gained weight beautifully, his vital signs were strong, and he no longer needed the monitors. You can take your son home tomorrow, Mr. Hayes, Dr. Martinez said with a smile. Gabriel's face went white. After the doctor left, he turned to Nora with panic in his eyes. I can't do this alone, he said. I don't know how to take care of a baby. What if something happens? What if I hurt him or he stops breathing or I don't know what his cries mean? You'll learn, Nora assured him. All parents feel this way at first. But I won't have you. The words came out desperate. Lucas needs you. I need. He stopped, running his hands through his hair. I have a proposition. Come work for me. Be Lucas's nurse. Live in. I have plenty of space, and you would have your own private suite. You and Lily both. I'll pay you 3 times what the hospital does, plus full benefits. Nora stared at him. Gabriel, that's not a reasonable solution. Why not? You need financial stability. Lucas needs you. It makes perfect sense. He leaned forward. I'm not asking you to stay forever. Just until Lucas is older. Until he doesn't need round-the-clock care. Until I feel confident enough to manage on my own. I don't know, Nora said slowly. Everything about the offer screamed complicated. Moving into a stranger's home, even one she had come to trust over these past days, felt overwhelming. Please, Gabriel said quietly. I'm not too proud to beg, Nora. My son is thriving because of you. I'm learning to be a father because of you. Don't take that away from either of us. Not yet. Nora looked down at Lily sleeping peacefully in her arms, then at Lucas resting contentedly in his father's embrace. She thought about her cramped apartment with the broken heating and the landlord who kept raising the rent. She thought about working 70-hour weeks and barely seeing her daughter. She thought about the unexpected connection she had developed with this grieving man and his motherless baby. One condition, she finally said. This is a professional arrangement. Clear boundaries, proper contracts, everything legal and documented. Of course, Gabriel agreed immediately. Whatever makes you comfortable. And if at any point it's not working, I can leave without drama or guilt. Absolutely. Nora took a deep breath. Then yes. We'll come stay with you. The relief that flooded Gabriel's face was so profound it nearly broke her heart. Thank you, he whispered. You have no idea what this means to me. 2 days later, Nora found herself standing in the circular driveway of Gabriel's estate, her jaw practically on the ground. She had known he was wealthy, but she had not been prepared for this. The house was a modern masterpiece of glass and stone, surrounded by manicured gardens and towering trees. It looked like something from a magazine, not a place where real people actually lived. It's too much, isn't it? Gabriel said, misreading her expression as he lifted Lucas's car seat from the vehicle. Rebecca always said it was too big, but she loved the light. All these windows. It's beautiful, Nora said honestly, adjusting Lily on her hip. Gabriel showed them to their suite on the second floor, a spacious set of rooms with a bedroom, private bathroom, and a sitting area that overlooked the gardens. It was bigger than Nora's entire apartment had been. I had the housekeeper set up a crib for Lily, Gabriel said, gesturing to the nursery corner. But if you need anything else, just say the word. That first night, Nora fed Lucas at midnight while Gabriel watched, still learning. Afterward, as they sat in the quiet nursery with both babies sleeping peacefully, Gabriel spoke into the darkness. I haven't thanked you properly, he said. For saving my son's life. For saving mine, in a way. You don't need to thank me, Nora replied softly. Yes, I do. He turned to look at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. You walked into the worst moment of my life and brought light back. You made me remember that even in grief, life continues. That love continues. Nora felt her cheeks warm. Gabriel. I'm not saying this to make you uncomfortable, he said quickly. I just want you to know that having you here, it means everything. They sat together in the soft glow of the nightlight, two broken people learning to piece themselves back together, bound by two innocent babies who had brought them into each other's orbits. Neither spoke of the way their hands had briefly touched when passing Lucas between them, or how natural it felt to share these quiet midnight moments, or how something tender and unexpected was beginning to bloom in the spaces between their words. Outside, the moon rose higher, casting silver light through the windows, and inside Gabriel's too big house, for hearts beat steadily together, creating the first fragile threads of something that might one day become a family. 6 weeks passed like pages turning in a book Nora never expected to read. The initial awkwardness of living in Gabriel's estate faded into comfortable routines that felt surprisingly natural. Mornings began with Lucas's hungry cries, followed by Lily's cheerful babbling from the nursery. Gabriel learned to change diapers without panicking, to recognize the difference between a tired cry and a hungry one, and to rock his son to sleep while humming off-key lullabies that made Nora smile. But something else was happening too, something neither of them had planned for or knew how to name. Nora noticed it in small moments. The way Gabriel started making her favorite tea without being asked. How he would hold Lily while Nora fed Lucas, talking to her daughter in soft tones about his day, treating her with the same gentle care he showed his own son. The way his eyes would find Nora across a room, and something warm would pass between them before they both looked away. Gabriel felt it in the way his heart lifted when he heard Nora's footsteps on the stairs. In how her laughter had become his favorite sound, better than any music. In the realization that he had stopped merely surviving each day and had started actually living again. One evening, Gabriel's older sister Victoria arrived unannounced. She swept into the house wearing designer clothes and carrying expensive shopping bags, her expression cool and assessing as she found Gabriel in the nursery with both babies. "So this is the new arrangement," Victoria said, her tone carefully neutral. She glanced at Nora, who was folding tiny clothes by the window. "How modern of you, brother." "Victoria, this is Nora Bennett. She's Lucas's nurse and has been absolutely wonderful with him." "Nora, my sister Victoria." "Nice to meet you," Nora said politely, sensing the judgment beneath Victoria's pleasant smile. "Charming," Victoria replied. "Gabriel, might I speak with you privately?" In the hallway, Victoria did not waste time. "What are you doing? It's barely been 2 months since Rebecca died, and you have this woman living in your house?" "Nora is helping me take care of my son," Gabriel said firmly. "Nothing inappropriate is happening." "Not yet perhaps. But Gabriel, people will talk. The family is concerned. This woman and her baby living here, it looks bad." "I don't care how it looks," Gabriel said, his voice hardening. "Lucas needed her. I needed her. She gave my son a chance at life when he was failing." Victoria's expression softened slightly. "I understand you're grateful. But don't confuse gratitude with something else. Don't dishonor Rebecca's memory by rushing into something." Her words planted seeds of doubt that grew over the following days. Gabriel became quieter, more distant. He still helped with Lucas but avoided being alone with Nora. The easy warmth between them cooled into polite formality. Nora noticed the change and felt it sting more than she wanted to admit. She told herself it was better this way, that she had been foolish to think the connection between them meant anything beyond circumstance. She focused on the babies, on her job, on maintaining proper professional boundaries. Then Lucas smiled for the first time. It happened on a quiet Sunday afternoon. They were all in the living room, Gabriel on the floor helping Lily practice tummy time while Nora held Lucas against her shoulder. The baby had been fussy all morning, but suddenly he pulled back, looked directly at Gabriel, and his whole face transformed into a gummy, beautiful smile. "Did you see that?" Gabriel gasped, scrambling closer. "Lucas, do it again, buddy." The baby smiled wider, his eyes bright with recognition and joy. Then he turned his head toward Nora and gave her the same brilliant smile. Finally, he looked down at Lily, who was waving her chubby hands, and smiled at her too. "He smiled at all of us," Nora whispered, tears springing to her eyes. "Like we're his family." Gabriel looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his carefully constructed walls crumbled. "We are," he said quietly. "Aren't we?" That night, after both babies were asleep, Gabriel found Nora on the terrace overlooking the gardens. She stood with her arms wrapped around herself, staring at the stars scattered across the dark sky. "You've been avoiding me," she said without turning around. "I know." Gabriel moved to stand beside her. "I'm sorry. Your sister doesn't approve of me being here. Victoria means well, but she doesn't understand." "Maybe she's right though," Nora said softly. "Maybe this is all too complicated. Maybe I should go." "No." The word came out sharp, almost desperate. Gabriel turned to face her fully. "Please don't go. I've been an idiot, Nora. I was scared. Scared of what? Of this. He gestured between them. Of what I feel when I look at you. Of wanting something I don't think I deserve. Nora's breath caught. Gabriel. Let me finish, he said, his voice shaking slightly. These past weeks have been the best and worst of my life. Worst because I'm learning to live without Rebecca, and that pain never completely goes away. But best because of you. Because you taught me that my heart still works. That I can still feel joy and hope in something that terrifies me because it feels like falling. I'm terrified too, Nora admitted. Every time you smile at me, every time our hands touch accidentally, every time I catch you playing with Lily like she's yours. I'm terrified because I never expected this. I never expected you. Gabriel reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. I don't want to dishonor Rebecca's memory. I loved her deeply. But I don't think she would want me to stop living. And being with you doesn't feel like betrayal. It feels like being given a second chance I never thought I'd get. I worry that I'm just convenient, Nora confessed. That you're confusing gratitude with something else. That one day you'll wake up and realize I was just the woman who happened to be there when you needed someone. Look at me. Gabriel cupped her face gently. You're not convenient. You're extraordinary. You're brave and compassionate and strong. You make me want to be better. You make Lucas light up with joy. You've given both of us something precious, and it has nothing to do with convenience and everything to do with who you are as a person. Tears streamed down Nora's face. I think I'm falling in love with you, and it scares me to death. I know I'm falling in love with you, Gabriel whispered. And it scares me too. But maybe that's okay. Maybe being scared means it matters. He kissed her then, soft and tentative at first, then deeper as she responded. It tasted like hope and new beginnings, like two people brave enough to risk their hearts again. The next months unfolded like a dream. Gabriel courted Nora properly, taking her on actual dates when his mother came to babysit. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. They learned each other's fears and hopes and favorite songs. Gabriel officially adopted the role of father figure to Lily, who started reaching for him as eagerly as she reached for her mother. When Gabriel proposed on a snowy December evening with both babies present, surrounded by candles and the piano music Rebecca had loved, Nora said yes through happy tears. They married in the spring in Gabriel's garden, a small ceremony with close friends and family. Victoria came and apologized to Nora, admitting she had been wrong. Lucas, now 8 months old, babbled happily throughout the ceremony while Lily threw flower petals with enthusiastic abandon. 1 year later, Nora stood in the same nursery where she had first fed Lucas, but now it had been redecorated in soft yellows and greens. She placed a hand on her growing belly, feeling the flutter of new life. Gabriel came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. Thinking about that first night, he asked softly. Always, Nora replied. I walked into your worst moment and found my greatest blessing. We saved each other, Gabriel said. You gave Lucas life. You gave me hope. You gave us all a family. From down the hall came the sound of Lily singing to Lucas, her sweet voice making up words to a melody only she knew. Gabriel and Nora stood together, listening to their children, grateful for the tragedy that had brought them together and the love that had healed them both. Sometimes, Nora thought, the most beautiful things grow from the darkest soil. Sometimes love appears not when you're looking for it, but when you're simply trying to survive. And sometimes, just sometimes, broken hearts can mend together into something stronger and more beautiful than they ever were alone. Their story had begun with loss and tears, but it had transformed into something magnificent. A family built not just on biology but on choice, on sacrifice, on showing up even when it hurt, on loving fiercely despite fear. And as Gabriel kissed her temple and their unborn baby kicked against his hand, Nora knew with absolute certainty that every difficult moment had been worth it. Every double shift, every tear, every moment of doubt had led her exactly where she was meant to be. Home. The end.